What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about why Canada is the most admired country on Earth. What a statement, what a claim could be true. You know, when people, especially Americans, think of places on Earth that they'd like to move to or that they respect or look up to, how they run things and policies, and Americans often point towards Canada. Sometimes Americans point towards like Scandinavian countries in Europe, like Norway or Denmark or Sweden, but a lot towards Canada, to be honest. That's probably number one. And to be clear, this video here, arguing for why Canada is the most admired country on Earth, was created 5 years ago. So there might be some things out of date that are mentioned, I don't know. But nonetheless, I feel as though most of the stuff in this video is probably going to still hold true, should be very interesting, and I'm just interested to hear why Canada is the most admired on Earth. And if that's the viewpoint of most other nations on the planet, kind of like how Americans think of Canada, so couple of things I'm interested in. Let's take a look.
2017 is the year that Canada celebrates 150 years of existence.
Happy Canada Day!
The specific day of their birthday was the 1st of July, so, well, happy belated birthday, Canada.
Wow.
And, well, dear viewer, 150 years of existence is not the only matter we should be congratulating Canada on.
You know, sometimes I think about that when we say the number out loud, 150 years. Canada and America are such young countries compared to, like, well, the British Empire, for one thing, Great Britain, which has been around forever. It's just fascinating to think about how successful and big and like important on the global scale and relevant that America and Canada have become in a relatively short amount of time. Pretty cool.
Country reached its 150th anniversary in great shape. Because, well, if there's something we can say about Canada right now, it's that the country is certainly in vogue.
In vogue. So 5 years ago, according to this man, Canada was very in style, very hip, the place to be. I think that has remained true.
And yes, Canada is also the homeland of many celebrities that we all know well.
What? Oh, Michael J. Fox? Jim Carrey?
But there has been
Keanu
one
Reeves.
celebrity who has been put in the international political spotlight. We are, of course, talking about Justin.
Yeah.
No, not that Justin.
Oh, you had me fooled. Justin
We
Trudeau?
meant this one, of course, Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, I mean, he's still the prime minister 5 years later.
Canada has reached its 150th birthday as one of the richest countries in the world with a top-notch quality of life, as well as being one of the most admired countries on Earth. Certainly not bad, right? So now you might be wondering, what is the cause of all of this? What are the main achievements that Canada is celebrating after 150 years? And importantly, well, is there a dark side to Canada? We're going to answer all of
Oh, wow. Not just the achievements, but the dark side. The dark side of Canada, okay.
those questions in this video, but first, let us get some perspective.
The Great Transformation.
You
Okay.
might not have heard much about Canada recently, but we can certainly say that they are no ordinary country. In fact, Canada is the second biggest country in the world, with its territory covering 6 different time zones. And guess which country has the most coastline in the world? Well, no prizes if you guessed Canada. Of course, as all regular Visual Politic viewers already know, neither the size of a country's surface nor its coastline determines its wealth or how many opportunities its citizens have.
True.
So
True. Just because your country has like a physically large land mass, some of the like highest GDP economy countries on the planet are also some of the smallest.
Then, what's really behind the success of Canada? Well, one key factor here is the disastrous years that Canada had in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh.
During this time, Canada suffered economic stagnation and several crises. These were bad enough that in 1995, the Wall Street Journal called Canada an honorary member of the Third World due to its inability to control government accounts.
Wow, honorary member of the Third World. That's one way to say it. Goodness gracious. This just made me realize that's a whole thing about Canada that I have no clue about. Like, Canada in the 80s and 90s. Huh. I can think about American pop culture in the 80s and 90s. Not Canada, though. What was going on? What happened? Well, apparently the economy was not doing so great. So, so I think I just answered my question.
Since then, as you can see, things have changed enormously. Canada really knew how to play to their strengths and get rid of their weaknesses. And especially and above all, Canadians have really understood the importance and meaning of these two words: competitiveness and integration.
Okay.
After those disastrous years of the 80s and 90s, Canadians realized that before thinking about spending, it is absolutely essential to think about creating. And they realized that in order to do that, they needed investment, businesses, and trade. A great deal of trade.
Okay, so even if Canada had like a 2-decade period of like economic stagnation, whatever you want to call it, it led to like a valuable lesson, a valuable reevaluation, if you will, to invest in like Canadian like business and other stuff that would like cause growth.
Well, so as it was said, so it was done. Canada is today the 7th freest economy in the world. But if we're talking about freedom, then we can't just talk about the economic side of things. The Fraser Institute publishes every year something called the Human Freedom Index. This measures both the economic and the civil freedoms that people enjoy. Quite simply, it measures what we can't do and what we can't. So, well, according to their research, Canada is the 6th freest country on Earth. To give you a better idea of how this compares to some other countries, well, the USA, they rank 23rd, Italy is in at 28th, and Japan is flagging in position 32.
Wow. I'd love to know the statistics and like modeling that they use to create these human freedom index rankings. But certainly Americans would possibly selfishly and hubrisly think that we are near the tippy top of civil freedoms. But Canada is destroying the United States in this ranking. 6th. USA is 23rd. Italy 28th. Japan 32. I wonder what number 1 is.
Maybe the reason for this is the strong decentralization that the country has. Canada, it's divided into 10 provinces and 3 territories that have so many unique regulations that in 2017, they actually had to sign a free trade agreement among them.
New interprovincial trade deal expected to add billions to the economy.
The decentralization
So he's talking about decentralization, as in making sure power is spread out. So he's basically arguing that having all the provinces and territories being so self-autonomous and create laws and systems within each province, like, spreads out the power so that maybe more people can be, like, represented and they can go live in a province that, like, represents their beliefs and values and things that they want to, like, living conditions that they want, things like that, I think.
Is absolutely enormous, and it has traditionally resulted in higher costs for those companies that don't operate in a single region but in several different regions, with each region having different regulations.
In Ontario, petrol must be at least 5% ethanol. Manitoba insists on an 8.5% blend.
Oh, okay. So this kind of situation can lead to annoying little legal and logistical ramifications like this, where different provinces have like different standards for ethanol. So I can see where that kind of thing would maybe be annoying.
The positive side of this is that this has worked as a counterweight to the federal government, and it's encouraged them to make pro-citizen policies, and that's something that has driven good public policies. Anyway,
Okay.
this new agreement has been created in order to beat all these surprising obstacles. Further, as we talked about in a previous video, there's also the Canadian bet on multiculturalism. And, well, let us be rather frank here. Nowadays, this country is one of the best examples of integration in the entire world.
That is something that keeps popping up time and time again in basically all the videos on Canada that I react to, is this emphasis on multiculturalism and how important that is to Canada, and what a fantastic job they've done with that.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
The Canadian Mosaic.
But what's all this Canadian multiculturalism? I mean, what's it all really about? Well, basically, it consists of accepting that cultural diversity is not a threat, but it's an asset and a source of opportunities for a country. Now, of course,
Right.
this multiculturalism is always subordinate to a core set of values, such as democracy, such as the rule of law, and equality for all people. Now, this means that in
Yeah, it is tricky, isn't it? Trying to be a nation that's wanting to identify as being a world leader in multiculturalism, while at the same time probably wanting to have some sense of what is Canada, what is a Canadian identity. But I guess you could just say that Canadian identity is being multicultural. That's what being Canadian is part of being about. So that's kind of a way that you can make it all work.
In order to be Canadian and be welcomed into their country, you don't have to replace your culture with any other, like the Canadian culture. You just have to accept and commit to those core Canadian values.
There, he's pretty much just talking about exactly what I was kind of wondering about.
I mean, look, Canada has one of the largest populations of immigrants in the world. 1 out of every 5 Canadians weren't born in Canada. And I mean, for some cities like Toronto, this figure it grows up to 50% or even higher. And it seems that it will be even higher in the future because every year more than 300,000 new immigrants come to this country, which is
Wow.
one of the highest immigration rates in the entire world.
One of the highest immigration rates in the world. It's like Canada, because of its success, like, is causing that to happen. It's attracting a lot of people just by being successful.
And do you know what the result of all of this is? Do you think it's a problem? Well, it's actually no problem at all. Yeah, look, as we said in that previous video, immigration in Canada is certainly not for free. There's this system that exists that's based on 3 fundamental pillars: points, family reunification, and refugees.
Okay.
The most important one of these is the point-based system. This exists to grant people residence or work permits. It considers things like having a job offer, which is the most important thing, or also maybe having a degree or having the ability to speak English.
Oh, this is another thing that I really have never learned about. Canadian immigration policy. It's a point system, so they basically award you points on a rating system based on, like, if you have the ability to contribute on some level to Canada by having a job or something like that, a degree. Interesting.
And do you want to know the results of these policies? Well, almost 80% of Canadians think that immigration is good for the economy. This is something that really shouldn't be so strange when you consider that all the statistics show that immigrants, the brand new Canadians, are more educated, they work more hours, they create more businesses, and they draw less dollars from social programs. Now, the question might be, does it have many rules about immigration? And certainly it does, but this sort of welcoming culture focused on integration, well, it's pretty rare to find.
Yeah, I like that, There are policies in place, from what I can tell, with immigrating to Canada and becoming a legal resident, while at the same time the culture is to, like, welcome people to try to attain that.
In fact, since 1977, every Canadian citizen can hold any other nationality without restrictions. So when someone emigrates to Canada and after some years they can obtain their Canadian passport, they don't have to renounce their previous nationality. But if something might perfectly show Canada's spirit, well, that would be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Hi everyone, bonjour tout le monde. I'm Justin Trudeau.
What? When was he in a boxing match? What the heck? Ha! Okay.
Justin Trudeau, a political star.
Justin Trudeau, he took office in 2015, almost by surprise, and at just 44 years of age. Today, he is one of the most popular politicians in the world, and that's true in Canada as well. This is something that the
Now, again, I know this video is 5 years old. I don't know anything about Canadian politics or anything, but I am keeping that in mind.
polls clearly show.
A recent survey by Abacus Data on the leadership of the Prime Minister shows that 70% of Canadians are confident that Trudeau will successfully manage Canada's relations with its allies. 63% trust his responsibility to make decisions, and 62% believe that his decisions will be good ones.
Sounds like at the making of this video, quite over the majority, over 50%, 70% was in approval, or at least had like a good sense that he was going to steer Canada in a positive direction.
I mean, how many politicians around the world would really like approval ratings like those?
Yeah.
We need a leader.
However, Trudeau, he's not a typical politician, not at all. The Prime Minister of Canada has put on the table a program and a form of government that's really quite different from what's typically being used. And when you look at his cabinet, I mean, it's a realistic sample of Canada's reality.
A cabinet that looks like Canada.
15 of the 30 ministers are women. There's even an Afghanistan veteran and an individual who was formerly a volunteer in Niger.
Okay, so he went out of his way to make like a multicultural or diverse cabinet to try to reflect like the multicultural aspect that is so important to Canada.
There are also business executives and even some ministers who are Sikhs, which is a religion native to the Punjab state in India.
The latest addition to that cabinet, by the way, has been Ahmed Hussein, a Somali who arrived to Canada as a refugee at 16 years old and is now the Minister of Immigration. Pretty amazing. Right? Trudeau's political priorities, well, they're as international as his cabinet. One of the government of Canada's key challenges is to boost trade among nations. Now, pay attention to their Foreign Affairs Minister.
Rising trade barriers hurt the people they are intended to help. They curb growth, stifle innovation, and kill employment. This is a lesson we should learn from history.
This is why Trudeau wants to sign a free trade agreement even with China. Secondly, unlike other governments, Trudeau doesn't just reject protectionism, but he wants to stimulate a productive change with artificial intelligence and automation. I mean, why hinder technology? If there's something we've seen as history has progressed, it's that technology improves people's lives and it creates more jobs.
I definitely like his outlook on embracing like disruptive technologies like AI and giving Canada every chance to like be a leader in the future, like going into the future by embracing stuff like that. And of course, bringing down barriers to trade and stuff, always probably good.
Now, it might not seem that something like that is too complicated to do, but the reality is that there are not many world leaders who defend this pro-technology position. Talking about jobs going away, it's not exactly a popular line. The other great challenge...
Okay, I see. Right. The whole automation, which may lead to like promoting and building your economy and technology as a nation, but automation will, by definition, take away jobs from people who like could be replaced by robots.
And maybe the key value of Trudeau's government is their bet on boosting civil rights and turning Canada into an international example of how this should be done. Take a look at the power of this picture. Trudeau has become the first Prime Minister to lead an LGBTQ pride parade. There's also the most recently released programme, Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy. Yep, you heard that right. Trudeau's government didn't hesitate to declare itself feminist, and among other things, they have decided to focus most of their international cooperation budget on pushing women's rights where they are most needed. Now, it's just a symbol, but sometimes symbols, they're pretty important. Other symbols and gestures are his position towards Syrian refugees, and pay close attention to this speech.
In recent months, Canadians have opened their hearts and their arms to families fleeing the ongoing conflict in Syria. And from the moment they arrived, those 31,000 refugees were welcomed not as burdens, but as neighbors and friends, as new Canadians.
To date, 40,000 Syrian refugees have arrived in Canada, almost half of them thanks to the sponsorship of Canadian citizens that have committed to be responsible in looking after their wellness.
Wow.
This is a great example of solidarity. But hey,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing being kind and generous, and, well, it's quite another to be naive. But consider this, the Canadian government has announced it.
Yeah, this reminds me of Canada and Canadians being super accommodating and helpful for the American 9/11 terrorist attacks and all that kind of stuff, which I know is a thing and something I've actually wanted to look more into.
Its intention to increase military spending by more than 70% from now until 2024 in order to create a more agile and modern armed forces.
Ah,
Trade, doors open to tech.
I literally just watched a video comparing the Canadian military, to the spending of the American military, and it's literally like, oh my gosh. Oh, what was it? Canada had probably $40 billion military. America had like a $750 billion military. Just absurd. Like way. I guess the point is maybe America has gone too far, and judging by this video, Canada is like making a concerted effort to increase spending to its military.
Technology, integration, civil rights, security, all these things don't sound bad at all, right? Especially if you consider that this government understands that before starting to discuss spending, you have to talk about wealth creation. Well, I mean, that's how Canada has reached its 150th anniversary. Everything bloody marvelous, right? Well, wait a second. I mean, not exactly. There are certainly some shadows, but we're actually going to leave those for another video, something we're probably going to call the dark side of Canada. Don't think that it's all just rainbows
The dark side of Canada. Oh boy.
and butterflies in Canada. Certainly not at all. Well, so do not forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss that video, and, well, that will allow you to hear the other side of the story. And
Okay. I think that's pretty much the end.
now we'd like to know your opinion. What do you think of Trudeau? You can leave us your comments below, and
Oh boy. He had to go and do that, didn't he? First of all, how about we do like a not Justin Bieber, Justin Trudeau, like approval rating? Let's do that. Trudeau tracker. Okay. Trudeau tracker, I like it. I don't want your emails. Okay, this goes back to 2014. Wow. So, I mean, if you just look at it at face value, it's pretty much stayed consistent over time. What do we have here? Approve has gone up towards 2016, then down towards 2018, up again 2019, down to 2020, up in 2021, then there was an election, and it's gone sideways. Okay, yeah, but the overall trend is sideways. Like, let me see here. Approval started. Well, actually, hold the phone. Hold the phone, people. I'm having trouble seeing the difference between these two colors, actually. I am somewhat colorblind with reds. It looks to me... Oh, wait a minute. Can I turn those off? Here we go. There, that's much better. Approval rating has gone down. pretty clearly from 50 to 40. Oh, very interesting. Man, it was so low in August 2019. Shot up May 20 and has slowly trickled down. Okay. Well, that gives me a very, very, very uninformed, vague idea about Trudeau's popularity over time. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, I don't know. I can't speak on Canadian politics and stuff, so I'm not even going to try. This is all just a learning experience for me, just taking in the information, taking in the data. This video was really good. Very interesting. It was by Visual Politic EN, and I liked it. I got to give that a like. This was really well done. The video is a little old, but I think most of it was fairly relevant, straightforward, like a really good synopsis of why Canada has been successful and continued to be successful, and why so many people, especially a lot of Americans, when they get fed up with America, are always like, "That's it, I'm out, moving to Canada." That's like the saying, like moving to Canada. So Canada must be doing something right. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada, Canadian culture, stuff in Canada that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.